Hey, what's up everyone? Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids, and today as I was coming out to shoot this video I just realized I'm wearing an urban camo sweatshirt, and that's fitting even though I didn't do it on purpose because we're going to be talking about this, which is the urban Puukko from Condor Tool and Knife. So I saw this knife at SHOT Show 2018 and I'm getting ready to head out to SHOT Show 2019 very soon here within the month. But this thing jumped out to me, just kind of a pretty design, a cool design. So let me roll in some footage of the knife here and give you the details as far as, you know, your steel, the length of the handle, overall length, those types of things. And then I'm gonna talk to you a little bit about my experience with the knife so far. So there are your details on the urban Puukko. Let me show you another Puukko side by side with this one. This is the Puukko that came out probably about a year ago from Tops, and you can see, I mean, just the look it's just a little bit different in general. So you've got a Scandi grind here, and you've got a flat grind here. You do have just your thinness. This is definitely a chunkier handle. This one has a bow drill divot, this one doesn't. And that's part of the reason why I think Joe called this the urban Puukko, Joe Flowers from Condor Tool and Knife. So Joe designs knives, he knows knives really well. So I think with this one he was saying like, yeah, this is more looking like a classic Puukko, and we're gonna take some of the features of this and, you know, plug it into this, but also have some differences that make this into essentially the urban Puukko. So as you can see in the name of this knife, it's called the Urban EDC Puukko officially. So it's not just the Urban Puukko, it's the Urban EDC Puukko. For me, this knife, based on what I do for work, you know, being a pastor, being in an office setting a lot, being with people a lot, you know, if someone was like, oh man, I have an extra string on my shirt, do you have a pocket knife I could use to cut this string off? This would feel just too big, I think, for a lot of people. They'd be like, whoa, what are you doing with that knife? So it depends on what, you know, what your setting is. What does everyday carry look like for you? A pocket knife, I mean, I did a whole video on scary knife syndrome and why people get scared of certain knives and why they don't. But I generally find a folding knife feels less intimidating to most people. So this may be an EDC knife for you, but for me, just based on my lifestyle and what my work looks like, this would not be a knife that I would be comfortable using for most EDC tasks. Not because I don't like the knife, but just because it would not be worth the headache of people freaking out. I think in general, seeing this, you know, this knife just out and about in my everyday carry system. Let me take a minute here and roll in some footage of this knife doing some everyday carry or utility tasks. So cutting some cordage, cutting some cardboard, things like that. You can see that it will definitely do the job. You know, when I think of a Puukko, I just tend to think of a utility knife or more kind of leaning towards being a woods knife. But as you can see, it'll do the other just everyday carry utility tasks just fine. It's a good knife for those types of jobs as well. So let me show you some of the feather sticks I made with the Puukko. I just sat around one night and was, you know, working on feather sticks. So there's one, and what I can tell you is that if you're used to a Scandi grind on a knife and then you have to shift over to using a knife that's got a flat grind, it just takes a little bit of time to kind of, okay, like I'm getting used to using the flat grind and how to handle the knife and use the knife. So that one's like, okay. And then this one I was messing around with. The wood was a little bit wet when I first got it from the outside. So there's a couple feathers there. A little bit more here. So you can see, I mean, with the urban Puukko with that flat grind, it does the job. This was the best wood because I think it was the most dry. So we got some more feathers on there. But I just sat around at night and was carving. And then let me show you this. This is a poor attempt, but I was just messing around, like I said, with a tri-stick, you know, so you do the different kind of cuts and angles. So there's the tip, not totally a spear point, but then you can see I've got like a notch for a notch for like a trap, and then I forget what this is called, saddle, I think, you know, if you're gonna be carving something to make like a pack out of. And then this was, I just stopped in the middle of it, but you basically want to thin it out and then have it, you know, a thin rod, and then it flares back out at the end. So all that to say, you know, this is a very thin stick, so I had to be very careful as I was doing it. But the urban Puukko, it did the job with all these, you know, all these different types of cuts. It was comfortable to use. I definitely prefer a Scandi grind or a saber grind, but I was able to do it with the flat grind. as well. So there's some, you know, just a little initial looks at some of the cutting that I did with it. I will show you that it can strike a fire steel. It does have a spine that allows it to do that. So here are some initial thoughts. First, the thickness of the handle. I do think the chunkier Puukko, like the Tops Puukko, is easier to hold. Just you know, it fills out my hand more. I've got large size hands, so doing those cuts, it was easier for me to do. That being said, I think Joe did a great job with having a thin handle, and then it tapers, so it's wider at the top and then thinner at the bottom. So as I was doing these, you know, making these feather sticks and carving and stuff, my hand wasn't like, oh, it's really sore. I wasn't getting any hot spots. I'm gonna roll in a clip here just to show you. I took a quick video of my hand. It was red after, you know, working on feather sticks for probably, I don't know, 20 minutes, maybe 15 minutes straight, but no hot spots, no blisters, no issues. So it's nicely made and it's comfortable in hand. So another thing to mention is the grind, the fact that it's a flat grind. Again, bottom line, I'd just say it takes some getting used to use a flat grind if you're used to using something else. I remember the first time I used the Ontario Knife Company Blackbird SK5, I was super excited to get out there into the woods and try it, and I was like, whoa, this is kind of a learning curve to get comfortable with that as opposed to that Scandi grind. So that's just something to be aware of. $10.95 for the steel. I think that's a significant win for a knife that you're going to be doing lots of detail work with. It's not like I like a $10.75 for a machete or something like that because it's got a little bit more flex. It's easier to sharpen up than a $10.95, though it's not a huge difference. $10.95 I like for this knife. It's easy to maintain. Yeah, it's a good steel, and you'll see that Condor is using more $10.95 on different knives. I think the overall look of it with the handle is really nice. I thought about actually getting Micah from Black Bear Custom Kydex to put together a sheath with this, and then like maybe, you know, like I don't know, I thought to myself, like I got a thing of pepper spray, like maybe a small thing of pepper spray and this in one setup that I could carry like scout style on my back, so that if I wanted a small fixed blade and, you know, to have another thing, I don't consider this like a woods knife. I can't consider it like a utility knife. You could use it in the woods, I guess, obviously, but you know, carry this as a small fixed blade, and then my pepper spray if I'm out and about. I could, you know, that could kind of be my system for the day. So we'll see if I do that. Now let me mention the one thing that I'm a little like about with this knife. It's an urban Puukko. It's got an urban look, or kind of a more industrial look, as opposed to a lot of the other Condor knives. While it's nicely made, I'm not jiving with this sheath here. It's leather. It's either a dark brown, it's got maybe a little bit of like a burgundy, or it's black, you know, depending on, I think it's got kind of a burgundy look to me. But this style of sheath with this knife, it just doesn't click for me. I know they have other Kydex sheaths for some of their knives, and they're pretty nicely made. So I know they can do it. So I was a little like, this sheath with this knife just doesn't jive for me. So if I were gonna be using this knife a lot, and it was gonna be a go-to knife for me in whatever, for whatever purposes, I'd get a Kydex sheath for this one. Now, that's a preference thing, that's my opinion, but yeah, as far as the quality of the sheath, the leather is good, and it sits nice and deep there, and it's staying in place. It's not like it's falling all over the place, and you got the dangler here as well. So it's nicely made. Just stylistically, I don't think it goes for me with this knife and what I think it should actually have as far as a sheath. Now, one other thing I want to mention here is that because the handle is so smooth, I wouldn't want to be like leaning against a branch and trying to cut with this thing. It just doesn't have a ton of grip. So, you know, me sitting in my living room, I had a basically the top of a pizza box that I was using to cut, so I didn't make a mess in the living room. But, you know, in a seated position with controlled cuts, it was totally fine. I wouldn't be out there, like I said, you know, leaning against something, trying to do some cuts, or holding things at weird angles and doing cuts, just because it doesn't have a lot of grip. So you just want to be aware that, you know, be careful as you're actually using the knife. And again, compared to the Tops, this thing is chunkier and just feels like it does have more grip than the urban Puukko. So when I thought about this knife and who is it for, I thought about like a utility knife for around the house, and then I thought it's just a classy looking knife. I could definitely see this for somebody who is doing gardening, especially, you know, if you're doing like bonsai or that type of thing, you know, where you want to have a good solid fixed blade that you can get out and do some of those detail cuts and trimming and things like that out in the garden. I think this could be a really nice knife. And again, the 1095, easy to maintain, you know, because you're out in the garden, even if it gets wet or dirty, go in, run it under the sink, clean it off, a little bit of oil, and you're good to go. And then just, you know, utility tasks around the house, whatever it might be. I don't consider this an outdoors knife as much as, I just feel like Condor has so many other knives that are built for the outdoors. This one I would definitely say, yeah, it's going to be a utility knife for me around the house, in the garden, out in the yard, that type of thing. But yeah, it definitely, the reason that I even wanted to look at it in the first place was because it caught my eye at SHOT Show last year. So I'm glad I've had a chance to take a look at it. And if you want to see another video on this knife, I'll send you over to Brian from Survival on Purpose, because he checked this out as well, so you can hear his thoughts on this knife. All right, guys, that's been the Urban Puukko from Condor Tool and Knife. And like I said, I'm about to head out to SHOT Show 2019. And they usually have a boatload of new designs and stuff, so we'll be checking out what they have for this upcoming year. But let me hear your thoughts on this knife. What do you think about it? What do you like? What would you change? And I do know that I have a chance to talk to Joe, and he also checks out the comments from time to time. So, you know, whatever thoughts you have to offer to them, I'll pass it on to him. So yeah, the Urban Puukko. Let's hear what you have to say. Okay, everyone, thanks for checking out the videos here. As always, please subscribe to Everyday Tactical Vids if you haven't done so already. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out on Instagram, Tumblr, and Vero as well. More videos coming soon. Take care.